Okay, Dan Gibson, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Let's warm up a little because we're coming back from summer break. What did you do during summer vacation? How did you rest and recreate?
Well, I think short of maybe once or twice a week, I put my phones down. That's the first thing I did, which was something that's not natural for the last 10, 11 years for me on city council, but I made a point of that. Spent some great time out with the family. We had a great summer. We did a number of trips with my eldest son for his baseball team. And we also did a graduation trip for my son up to a fishing lodge in sort of central Ontario, not too far, not too close. So we've had a highlight summer. We really have. It's
Mm.
been nice. And, short of a few patches of Canada getting pretty dry, we've had a pretty great summer here. We've had a pretty great summer here. So,
Yeah, level two red. I think that's the first time we've had level two red in a couple of years. It's gotten
yeah,
that dry.
yeah,
Anyway, let's turn our attention to fall then. Council's back in
sure.
business weekly. Um, as you've been trying to take a break, but I'm sure it's been top of your mind, like thinking about the challenges coming up at City Council. Like, what are some of
Mhm,
the
mhm.
things you've been thinking about as fall has approached, and the things that are sort of on the docket coming up in the next few
Sure.
months?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll start in my ward, and then I'll branch out to across the city. So in my ward, I continue to track the Watson and Starwood development, the large commercial and residential development there. I think it's Turcotte Homes is the proponent. I'm still going back and forth, getting updates from staff when that's coming back to council for approval. That's something that I would really like to get approved from a zoning perspective this fall, if possible, so that they can move into site plan and start breaking ground next summer. On a citywide basis, maybe a little bit broader, is the Guelph Innovation District. Again, focusing on home building and focusing on getting shovels in the ground on those sort of infrastructure pieces. I think the GID lands are coming back to council tonight at the planning committee, so
Hmm.
we'll have some good discussion in terms of the zoning and the block plan. Um, the third piece, I think, from a budgetary perspective, would be the mayor's strong mayor power on the budget,
Hmm.
looking to get to about, I think, 3 to 4% total, which is a really high bar to set. But I'd like to see what that looks like when he comes forward with his budget, so that we can debate and support or add or take away. And then maybe fourthly, again, just tracking the support from upper levels of government when it comes to um, well, we had some big announcements on recreation in the city this year, which was great. Some funding coming down, but I think more importantly, everyone's mind is still coming to the fall when the cold weather sets in. How are we going to support our marginalized population downtown, the homeless population, as well as the substance abuse issues that we face? How we're going to best support that this winter and ensuring that everyone has a roof over their head this fall and this winter.
Laid out a bunch of stuff I want to talk deeper about, but that
Sure.
last one first. We've had some good announcements from the
We
province.
have.
There is the
Yeah.
Lion Pool and for money for the South End Community Center. There
Yes.
was also money for the big dig along Wellington Street that's been going on this summer. So we get these like good good news announcements for the city in terms of provincial grant money. We do also from the feds too, but I mean, people are looking at the province to take that substantive action you're talking about on
Absolutely.
the
Yep.
unhoused population and social services and things. From the point of view of someone who advocates for the city, how do you like balance that? Like, thanks for the money, but we need more money on other stuff too.
Well, it really is a perfect storm, and you can look at it from every level of the housing spectrum and point out the issues. So the fact that our national population has grown by, I think reports this week are coming out around 10 million people in the last 10 years. We have not kept up with the pace of growth. Therefore, every level of the housing continuum is strained. So you talk about adding housing at the lower end, supportive needs, supportive housing, all the way up to individual, single, detached homes. There's an absolute crisis of shortfall. On the flip side, however, is that I mean, I talk to the home builders and I talk to developers and I talk to people in real estate, and the housing market itself is very slow because the appetite
Mm,
to spend this much money on a home is just not there. I truly believe there's a generation of Canadians that don't have parental support, that are just choosing not to participate in the housing market. Because I mean, I've thought of this to my own sons, thinking of a 30-year $1 million mortgage on a center row townhome. That's not the that's just a hard that's a hard truth right now in central Ontario, southern Ontario. So the announcements are great from the upper levels of government, but we also need to be supporting all levels of infrastructure, from housing to roads to schools to hospitals to our social services to police services. Like, everything needs to keep up when your population is growing that fast. I think you're going to see some reforms at the federal level this fall. I think they're starting to talk about reforms.
Hmm.
That being said, it will take some time for the housing market to stabilize, all while we're trying to ensure that people aren't falling out through the social safety nets that we have, which you and I can both agree that they likely are. We need to be
Sure.
having roofs over more heads. So, yeah, the news, the announcements from the upper levels of government are welcome. I will say, on the recreation and infrastructure and pipes in Wellington Street, this has been a long held truth at the municipal level, and something that I was kind of scolded on for talking about for many years, is that when it comes to infrastructure renewal, municipalities are generally counted on for 30 to 35%. It's not always as clean as 30 to 30. Sometimes we're doing 100%. Other times
Right.
we're doing 0%. But in general, we're looking at 30 to 35% contributions. And the province and the feds step up and they do their thing too. They like their announcements. You know that. So when it comes to the infrastructure renewal, and specifically the levy, I'm actually going to start talking about it this fall. I really appreciate staff finally agreeing with me and council agreeing with me that it was far too fast, far too aggressive to be placed on this generation of homeowner. And I'm glad that we slowed it down in the last few years to spread it out over 30, 35 years instead of the 10 that they were originally talking about.
Well, and to be fair, it's not a matter of need necessarily. It's a matter of capacity. There's only so much we can do at one time.
That's another angle. Well said, Adam. We all know that if we had the money, we still couldn't get the replacements done
Right.
that fast. There's simply not that many construction crews out there. So pacing it and being accountable for the pace is something that I'm happy to be part of. But the way it was being collected and the way it was being stockpiled, it just wasn't appropriate. So again, I'm going to start talking about it a little bit more this fall. But I'm happy to see the alignment with staff on that, and then ultimately council generally comes in alignment too.
Well, all
I
right.
hope
Well,
I hope my old fellow councilor Mark McKinnon listens, because I've had many great debates about this.
um, yeah, no, I'd be interested to take part in that debate or to moderate it, maybe. To stick with the developers though, and I'm thinking about this especially this week because as we're recording this on Tuesday, we have the Cllr Road redevelopment, that plaza with Harvey's
Oh,
and Galaxy Cinema, where it's like
yeah.
750 units, 5 towers. But like that whole plaza, which I was at The Conjuring on Friday night. Not
Huh.
not many empty seats, so
No.
that would be a big loss in some ways. The GID is another one, but I mean, we have these massive projects. At least at this week, in terms of council meetings, we have these massive projects. A lot of money these companies have invested, of course, and they're not doing these things because they don't want to make money, obviously. But there is I want to say a skepticism in the community. Like if we're talking about closing down a whole plaza to
Mm.
make like a well-used plaza, um, to build more housing. I mean, I remember when that Galaxy Cinema had to close because of the flooding repairs, and people are like, "Well, it's never gonna come on because they're gonna be," there's a lot of things going on. Skepticism about developers, misinformation, and I'm not saying anyone's purposely
Mm.
spreading misinformation. It's just people aren't
Mm.
on top of all the channels
Mm.
like us. But in terms of like the messaging, in terms of um, how making sure people understand fully what's going on and not just feeling like they're adrift in a sea of like stuff happening to them.
Yeah.
What I guess first of all, what's the role of council in that as we're tackling these big projects, and then what's the role you would like to see some of these developers take in community engagement?
Yeah, I think from my perspective and from my role on city council, I just want to continue being authentic. Like I don't want to be ever feel like I'm spinning or selling a view of something, because quite frankly, yeah, it is frustrating to see a commercial commercial properties that people have enjoyed going to for years, flipping hands and turning into housing developments. I wonder if the conversation around water supply management will come up when we're talking about, because it was never designed to maybe deliver that much water to that property. But
Hmm.
that's something we're going to have to talk about at council. It's the evolution of the city. There's a tipping point happening with housing. I don't know this personally, but I have heard this in many conversations. Again, there's a tipping point back to rentals, affordable rentals, simply because the home ownership piece is starting to miss. People are starting to opt out of that 25-year, $700,000 mortgage. They're not interested in that, so they're moving more towards a rental mindset. Which I mean, I don't align with. I would love to think that everyone who wants to own a home should be able to buy a home, but
Sure.
it is a very frustrating thing seeing the house prices in the last decade and a half just go through the roof the way they have. We simply have not kept up with supply. So I'm sympathetic to the changes down there at Cllr Road. There's going to be a lot of changes along that corridor, but it's going to have to be something that we talk about. And when we meet that growth target, we need to start saying no a little bit, because
Mm,
frankly, it can't just be all houses. It can't just be all houses.
mm. I want to get to saying no in a sec about GID, but the if I can talk about my thinking is like it I would when I go to that Galaxy Cinema, for example, and you walk from the bus stop, you're walking through sidewalks that like snake and wind through parking lots, and it's like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
got to be a better way. And one of the things looking at the concept drawings for their redevelopment plan, it's like, well, they're nice boulevards and there's proper sidewalks and presumably trees, or at least trees in the pictures. And I come from the point of view, it's like, yeah, I can't wait to see this, but I'm not looking forward to probably the years of waiting for construction again to begin, plus the years of construction likely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there,
These are
there's a,
these are 10-year projects. Yeah.
yeah.
They take a long time. And that part can be frustrating. Again, I don't plan to see the finish of the Starwood Watson property. I
Mm.
just like to see the start, because the time it's going to take, and the GID lands, for example, that my expectation of the GID lands may not be what others is, but my
Right.
expectation of the GID lands is 20 years.
Mm.
It's not just going to go poof and there's 5,000 homes in there. It's going to be block after block after block going up. That's my expectation. Now the developer may have a different idea. They may think they could do it faster. My expectations as a citizen are perhaps misinformed compared to what we're going to hear at council tonight. But that's
Right.
my expectation. So yeah, these are big disruptive projects, and I'm sympathetic for people who live near them. The flip side, however, is when you get infill projects in neighborhoods, they have to be subtle, because people have bought under the expectation that the neighborhood is stable,
Right.
established. I've started to sound like my colleagues Downer and Pipe and sorry, Caron a little bit, but you have established neighborhoods,
Sure.
and the expectation is that they're going to be stable and established. So we need to be subtle with that. I think the only benefit to the Cllr Road is that on the backside there is a little less development, so it's really just the Cllr facing road that's going to see a lot of the disruption.
Yeah.
But we have to be sympathetic to what that means.
Yeah, no, of course. I think there's no such thing as little disruption, no, when it's in your own backyard. I want to get to the GID portion, which is we have this unusual situation, and it has been unusual, where city staff have looked at a planning proposal, even something like a block plan, and said, no, sorry, we can't endorse that.
Mm.
Does that put a level of difficulty on you then, as one of the decision makers, I mean, and the developers will be there, Fusion Homes will be there at the meeting, delegating, to look them in the eye and say, we have to side with our staff and not the developer, and appreciating all of the things we talked about, the need for housing. This
Yeah,
has been in the works for years. We want to see it finally get going, but it's not even on the basics of like community parks, schools, roads, and things. It's not what we wanted.
hmm hmm so I'll just recap a little bit of the planning process. Staff are generally held to our planning, sort of our long-term planning plan, like Oh, I'm slipping here. We have our
The official
planning,
plan.
the official plan, and they're held to those visions and those treatments in those sort of sections. So when you go outside of the official plan for Guelph, they have to come to council for help. They will likely lean on the official plan as the approved document just by nature. And if
Right.
there's subtle amendments that need to be required that they can live with, okay. But if there's big major changes, even if privately they agree with them, the official plan does not. So they
Right.
need to come to council with an official position of, we don't support these changes because they don't align with our official plan. Um, that's the official approach to planning. Now, if we go offside from our staff and we support something that staff does not support, and as you know, if it gets elevated, staff aren't in support of council's decision, that creates problems for us at the tribunal level.
Sure.
So council generally wants to side with staff, but council, me, I'm not afraid to challenge staff and get them to think outside the box. And sometimes staff will let us know sort of, we don't support it, but we're also not going to be the ones appealing it if you guys decide to go in this direction. Like you need to be the one steering the ship on this council. We don't feel like it's within our mandate to make that significant a change. So some of the things that Fusion are asking for around the parks, some of the employment questions, like those are questions that council is going to have to wrestle with,
Mm.
and we can do that with our official plan, but staff don't feel comfortable doing that. So I think that's maybe a little bit of foreshadowing for tonight about some of the conversations we'll have.
Right.
That we would love to see something great at GID. We've heard from the developer that it's something great, it's something different. We'll listen, but at the same time, we don't want to drift too far from our official plan because there's domino and trickle down effects that happen elsewhere in the plan if we make a lot of accommodation here. So
Right. I
yeah,
mean, and the idea is you kind of paint staff into a difficult position because they will be defending it at OLT, not city councilors.
that's right. We're on opposite sides, so that's not something that we want to be seen doing too often.
Right.
So my goal would be to get a sort of a tacit acknowledgement from staff that it's not within the official plan, but they can live with it. Then we can move forward with that type of framework. At the same time, though, there's going to be lines in the sand that they just don't feel comfortable crossing. So
Right.
I'm sure we'll hear tonight about water supply, perhaps. Like I would ask at the Cllr Road project as well about water supply, the change of use. This such a significant change of use. What does it mean for water supply?
Hmm.
And parkland and the connectivity of the parks. Those are all things, and a little bit of heritage, I think, at GID tonight. So there's going to be lots of layers.
Hmm.
I'm not anticipating a short meeting.
Neither am I. But from the sound of it, it's like it's a negotiation. It's like this is the line in the sand as well. Like, does this follow the official plan and the innovation district secondary plan? And this is what the developers have. And maybe at the end of this meeting, we meet in the middle.
I think that would be perfect. That would be an ideal outcome. We're,
Hmm.
we're going to hear about probably some lines in the sand from the developer as well. I'm not aware of them, but we're probably going
Right.
to hear about those as well. And we'll see. It's a weird meeting, not knowing really the outcome. Generally, you get a feel for where council's leaning, but this one's really it's wide open.
Yeah, that's true. I want to talk about another matter of kind of like staff versus the public on this, and this is sort of like this plays into I think you've been leading on this file a bit, the heritage designations, because I feel like there's two pressures. One is from the province where we have to designate as much as humanly possible before the list is deleted, and I think that's one pressure, and the other pressure is it seems to be that I guess because of housing values, because of insurance difficulties in the industry, it's hard for there's clearly an onus that may be a bit much for the homeowner as
Mhm.
well. And this is another thing. It's like, how do we reconcile these two things? And I guess what we see heritage staff sort of pivoting to approving the people who are they've reached out to people like, do you want a designation? And those are the ones that are going to be coming forward this fall. But in terms of how do you reconcile two competing demands? Because I wonder if the message that's been sent is we will follow the planning rules and the heritage rules unless somebody complains. And that's not a complaint against you or anyone on council, but I mean it has been a trend that I've
Yeah,
noticed
we've
anyway.
had two files come forward, and we've deferred both. Yeah.
Sure.
Um, I I live in a home that was built in 2010, so I don't have these issues. That being said, in 30 years I may.
Sure. Yeah.
So when I hear about from stories from homeowners, real estate agents, and the like, when they say, Dan, I have to get a demolition permit to reparge my house, like the parging on the side of the house. It's old, sort of like cement, clay, whatever they were doing, or I have to get the windowsills in my home. Like Heritage Guelph gets a say
Mm,
as to whether or not I have to preserve those things. That's a very frustrating place to be for a homeowner looking at their home, looking to reinvest. So,
sure.
again, I would have people counterpointing me right now if this was an open conversation. I understand that, but if I'm looking at an exterior wall in my home that's 100 years old, and I have to take down the exterior of the wall to rebuild it to 2x6 joists, right? Because it's right now it's built with 2x4s. If I have to open up the side of my home to put in a higher R value so that my home is more energy efficient, and that takes a demolition permit to get to, Heritage Guelph is going to come in and have a say as to whether or
Mm,
not I can proceed with those upgrades. I struggle with those things. I struggle with those things a lot. So when I hear that from homeowners, when they want to do a new roof, a new roof line, or new trusses in their roof, but that's designated a heritage feature. That's someone else's opinion, laying it on top of the homeowner. And I just want to. I'm not saying nothing is heritage, but I'm also not saying everything is heritage.
right.
So I want to. I sympathize when a homeowner comes forward, saying, I've been through this process. I had to get a demolition permit. An old colleague of mine had a place in the ward on York Road, and I think he had been back and forth with Heritage 2 or 3 times over building a second-story balcony over off the back of his house. It was a unit, and he really struggled with the back and forth. He just wants to build a second-story balcony, and Heritage is not even the building department. It's another committee that he's having to go to, and staff continue to kick them back over to it. So
Right.
I hear these stories. I'm sympathetic. I know staff right now in the city is messaging on Heritage saying it's not always this bad. It's not always this bad. Again, I'm hearing the same stories on the other side. So I'm not trying to be offside with staff. I'm just being authentic when I hear these stories.
No, and I get that, and I remember this story. Somebody who once I was once talking to somebody who used to manage a business, and like some inspector came in and said, "Well, you have 26 people here. You're only allowed to have 25." And so he said, "Like, all right, I'll send somebody home." And it's like, well, then somebody's out a day's pay because, and it's like when you frame something like that, it's like, is it really such a big deal that there were 26 people on the floor instead of 25?
That's right.
And it's always like, but the rules are there for a reason. And when something like, I don't know, like a roof is accidentally taken off, and it's like, well, but one big deal, and it's one roof. There's this one farmhouse. I think it's in the Hanlon Creek Business Park, and it's like the last example of the farmhouse of its kind. And the owner wants to tear it down, and council and heritage experts are like, no, you can't. It's the last one. It's like it always comes down to like there's always that one exception. So I guess the question is like, how do you be flexible while also still acknowledging there's a rules-based system?
I I struggle with this. Council again is I'm not. I'm going to use a term. Don't quote me. The kangaroo courts, right?
Okay,
That
yeah.
you don't know what you're getting when you come in. For example, if you had asked me a few years ago what the preservation the piece at the University of Guelph, the glass
The conservatory, yeah.
conservatory, I, I that's heritage. That to me, that is 1,000% a piece of our history that should be preserved. The university said we can't afford to just keep on remaking this thing. We need a break.
Mm,
Council said, okay, let's preserve pieces of it. Let's do something to memorialize what was here. Let's take lots of pictures, blah, blah. And we said, okay, that's fine. A few months later, a woman came forward saying, I can't get insurance on my home. Please don't designate me. And council 100% agreed. It was 13-0 votes, Adam. A few weeks later, another gentleman came off Aramosa and said, I struggle to find insurance, blah, blah, blah. And the vote was like 9-4. I
Mm,
tabled that motion to defer in the last meeting, and it passed, but it wasn't. And the comments were, these are unrealized concerns. These aren't real. But we had just been there a month earlier saying that they were all acknowledging they were all real. And we gave this person a deferral. So yes, the rules exist, but it's very clear from council that council's willing to, I don't want to say pick and choose, but they're willing to
right.
make amendments and make accommodation for certain reasons. I struggle with that in general. So my position on this heritage destination file now is that if someone comes forward as asking for a deferral, the precedent's set. We
The
need to listen
precedent
to them.
set.
We probably need to give them a deferral,
Right.
right? If they're
Right.
citing the same reasons as the other people, I don't know how to move away from that. I have to be authentic in my decision making. So
And I guess that's the thing I'm getting at is that as you said, the precedent's been set, but at the same time, is that what council is now? Is kind of like an arbiter of like
yeah,
when it
so
doesn't. I mean, it kind of is because it comes to council for approval. But I mean, is that part of the job now? Is you got to weigh the good of the community good of the designation versus the individual onus on the owner for everyone.
that's right. In my world, um, I know it's a big thing like this, but for me, the heritage is obvious.
Mm,
That's how I look at a file. The
right.
heritage is obvious. The conservatory to me was obvious. Like there's other buildings that I see, I'm like, that's not obvious.
Eight
It was
eight out of
built.
nine for the conservatory, Dan. 8 out of
Yeah. So it was like if the building there on the GID lands comes forward, I think it was built in the 80s.
the turf. Yeah, turf grass institute. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really neat location. It's a beautiful building. Is it heritage, or can we do something to sort of symbolize and officially like create some kind of memorialize the site by recreating and repurposing some of the building material? I think that's where I go with that. It's not from turn of the century. It's not even from the early 1900s. It's from 1980 something.
Well, this is true, but I mean, as I'm constantly reminding myself, the 80s were 40 years ago. So,
It's true. Yeah.
we'll have to leave it there. But Dan, thank you so much for your time today.
Adam, as always, I'm a huge fan of the show. Thank you for what you do. Take care of yourself, and we will see you around the horseshoe, I promise.
Will do.
Thanks.